Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Rewrite Your Story podcast. I don't even know what episode we're on anymore. This intro is short this week, I promise. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that this episode, if you haven't noticed already, I'm doing a bit of an entrepreneur series on the podcast. Yes, we still have the episodes where we're talking a bit more about trauma, mental health, and those sorts of things. But I wanted to bring some entrepreneurs on because there is no successful person out there in this world that hasn't had to go through this shit. Like, when you think of it, these people are running their own business, they're doing everything themselves, and they still go through day-to-day life and day-to-day shit. They have their own traumas, they have their own history, but for some reason, there's something within them that aspires to be different. There's something within them that decides to not listen to the cultural norms, to not listen to that imposter syndrome, and also not listen to what people tell them to do and decide to do something different for them. They make a choice that they want something more and they do something about it. And if that is something that you think is not relevant to mental health, then you can skip on over to the next one. But to me, I feel that this entrepreneurial mindset, getting into the mind of an entrepreneur and what makes their brains tick, is such a useful tool for the mental health space. So without any further ado, let's just jump into this week's episode. Go grab a notebook if you don't already have one, because I know you're going to want to take some notes from the things that this wonderful guest has to say. But yeah, let's jump into it. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to the Rewrite Your Story podcast. If you are someone who is looking to take power back into your life and be in control of your destiny, then this is for you. This podcast was created to empower others by sharing the tools that have truly transformed my life. So sit back, relax, and let's start rewriting your story today. So hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Rewrite Your Story podcast. For those of you who are joining on YouTube, you will notice that I have a wonderful guest with me today.
Hello, everyone.
So Zach, I know there's obviously a lot of people here who don't know you, so take it away, introduce yourself, and let everybody know who you are.
This is always an interesting question to answer. It's like you could go so many different directions.
No pressure, sorry.
My name is Zack O'Rourke. I am from Ireland, and I know Amy through living in Vancouver for 2 years. That's where we kind of first came across each other. But my background is, I lived in Ireland all my life, kind of big into travel and big into the world of entrepreneurship as well. I guess my background is I'm a techie. I've always kind of loved the tech world. Went to college for technology and that side of the world. But when I started to travel, I kind of realized quite fast that my kind of passion is to do my own thing and to take control of my life and to just kind of make the most out of life as well. So looking forward to kind of sharing more about myself in the rest of this podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. And like Zach said, he has built his own career and he's doing his own thing along with traveling. And that's really why I wanted to bring people like Zach on, that you guys can hear not only how I rewrote my story and built the life that I want, but I'm bringing other people on who are not only doing it for themselves and getting through their own struggles and their own shit in life, but people who are actually following their dreams, that next step even further. So I'm really excited to jump into Zach's story. And I know it for yourself too, Zach. I don't know when you've ever kind of looked into the business world and looked at other entrepreneurs. You kind of wonder sometimes, like, how did they start? Like, is this mommy and daddy that's funded this? Has their whole family always been entrepreneurs? For you, were there any other entrepreneurs in your family growing up, or is this something that you just were a bit different to everybody else?
Yeah, like for me, so I definitely didn't fall into the world of entrepreneurship. It's my family are like, the typical kind of family that have worked, it's really most of my family have worked for someone all their life, and kind of been in the employee side of the world. But it was kind of my dad that he has been self-employed for most of the time I've been alive anyway, and kind of traditional self-employed, service industry. Like he does renovations, like so bathrooms and that side of things. So he did have the freedom of working for himself, but I don't think he fully benefited of the modern day entrepreneur that is a bit more laptop based. So
Yeah.
but he was the one that kind of always encouraged me to, like, do your own thing. Like, if you find what you love and stick at that. Where my mom on the other side would be kind of like, I really want you to find a job that, gets a good pension and that
Yeah.
is secure, and the typical Irish mammy thing. So
Yeah.
I
She wants
kind
to
of
look
like,
after her little baby.
exactly, and I get that. Like, it is like, it's, I think even now to this day, my mum would be kind of concerned about, is Zach busy? Like, is he making money? Because she doesn't know, and she doesn't really understand.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like, I came from two backgrounds, really. Like, I have, I don't really know many entrepreneurs, to be honest. I have an uncle that's kind of, he did his own thing, but other than that, I've always kind of grown up around people that just, do work for someone else and are in the employee world. So that's kind of where I came from.
I love that. I like that it's kind of you did something a bit different. That's always been me. I've always been the black sheep. I'm like, what's Amy doing now? Everyone's always, anytime I'm up to something, they're like, oh, it's just Amy. She's a little different. So it's nice to know that I'm not the only one out there.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. It's like, you just start to feel like you're always going against the grain. And
Yeah.
it's like something you probably were the same. You just, from a young age, you're just like, why do I think different? Every single scenario here, I feel a little different about it. Like, my
Yeah.
opinion is different.
How did you find that growing up? Because, like, I'm sure you mentioned like your mom and your dad were kind of more traditional workers. Some of your friends may have been even in that state. How did you find when you're telling, people that I'm going to go do this? Because, like, when we go into the entrepreneurial life, it starts off as a dream one day, and then we start to say we're doing this, and we tell our friends and our people in our circle what we're doing. How did that sit with the people in your life?
Yeah, like, from a young age, I've always been known as like Zack the businessman. Like, my first business was selling like my stuff to neighbors on the road through over my wall. I'd set up a sale, and then I moved on to by TY. I had a company called Flash Covers, and they sold iPhone covers. They're like, every student in the school was like buying it. Like, I'd be the go-to guy. Like, I'd be like, opening up my lockers, like, what cover do you want? iPhone 3? I've got it. That sort of attitude. And like, it was all kind of funny at the beginning. But people used to just think I was a bit of a messer, I think, because I did struggle with the traditional approach and the traditional outlook at things. And because I would get in my head that I want to do one thing, I would just kind of lose concentration on the other. So like, people would always just assume Zack doesn't take life too seriously. He's just like, he's going to be one of those guys that, like, I don't think they had much faith in me, to be honest, like, because of that.
I can
So
kind of see the messer, like why they'd be like that. Like, for anybody who doesn't already follow Zack, him and his lovely girlfriend Shauna do a podcast series called Our Millennial Life, and you guys dig in deep sometimes in some of your personal stories. And I'm like, yeah, Zack was definitely one of those boys growing up, girls, if you know what I mean. But Shauna whipped him into shape. So I can kind of see where the messer might come from, given the previous stories that I've heard from you guys.
exactly. And I think the problem is, when you're an entrepreneur, you are quite distracted when you're younger, because there's nothing satisfying your calling. Like, there's nothing, you're in school and it's this and it's that and it's follow this and follow that.
Yeah.
And like, I just didn't feel like excited by that. Like, I wasn't allowed to go off and do my own thing. And my parents, like, as a child, I was a very annoying child, a lot of crying, a lot of whinging, until they gave me that's hilarious. And until they gave me a toy car. They gave me, the iconic yellow roof toy car with it's
The
like
red
like
bottom.
you sit into it.
Yeah.
And once I got that, I had some freedom, and they said I stopped crying at that point. So it was like, I just needed the freedom to do my own thing. And even as a child, once I could go somewhere in my little toy car, I was satisfied.
I
So
love that. I love it. But hey, you've been wanting to take control from an early age in your life, which is good. I think
yeah.
when we have that little inner voice that where we know what we want, like, there's so many people I chat to that are looking to go into business for themselves, or even that I'm doing career coaching with, who are like, Amy, I don't know where to start. I don't know what I'm passionate about. I don't know where to begin. And I guess I was one of the lucky ones that kind of came naturally to me. But from hearing your kind of adventure, you were doing phone cases, you were selling your stuff over the hedge, you've been doing a bunch of stuff. Where did you, or when was the kind of moment that you feel like you kind of realized this is what I want to do, you know, going into the realm that you're currently working in?
I would say, frustratingly, it was not till the third year of college, and that was after failing a year as well, that I was like, okay, like I was very frustrated with myself because, you know, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think that's the most frustrating thing for people is like,
Yeah.
I want a passion, but I don't know what it is. And it's there somewhere, but I can't figure it out. I started YouTube as a personal project. I kind of watched some YouTubers in Ireland at the time and was like, holy crap, like these guys are just traveling for a living. They are in airports on random days. Like I was only used to going to the airport during the summer for my 2 weeks to Spain, and these guys were flying to Iceland in January and filming something, and I was like, that's so exciting. I was like, I want to be involved in that. So I just naturally was like, what's the quickest way I could be involved in that? I'll just start making YouTube videos and learn how to shoot, film, and edit for YouTube. And that was the initial kind of foot forward into the world of what I do now, which is obviously escalated a lot more. But I was all of a sudden then editing. I knew how to edit and I knew how to shoot film. So people were kind of catching on that that's what I could do. Um, so I was doing that in college, not really making any money. Just like people were like, what is this guy doing? Like, why is he filming? Whatever, he's a wannabe YouTuber. This guy is you're not gonna, like, some people like, you're not gonna make it on YouTube. Some people like, oh, I'm excited to see you make it. You know, naturally in Ireland you get
Yeah.
those split between the middle.
Yeah. And
um
more so on the negative side, I'd say. Like it's a
More
tricky one.
negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I even started the YouTube years ago for singing. Years ago. Like it's still there. It's still on the internet. I
I
might
love
even link
that.
it in here
Don't
if
ever
anybody wants to
delete
have a giggle.
it.
But I gave up for the same reasons. Like people are like, who does she think she is? Like, what the hell? Why are you even doing this? Like, she's full of herself. Like, nah. But then a handful of people that are like, you have a great voice. And like, I was professionally performing at such a young age, but it was that mentality of people being like, no, why are you doing this? And then I just stopped
It's tough.
completely.
Yeah, like that's tough to hear, you know. It is tough when, like, in Ireland, if it gets to the point that it stops you, like that really frustrates me, you know,
Yeah.
because it's just like there's so many people out there that should be doing their passion and they just listened too much to
The
people's
negative.
opinion. You know?
Yeah, it's tough. It is a weird one. Like we do get in our heads, and I think Tony Robbins says if you're in your head, you're dead. So I get it. I get it. And you'd mentioned there, kind of guess two things that I want to dive into a bit more. So like you'd mentioned that you had saw other guys, other people doing this, and it was something that interested you. So that's a big key thing, I'd guess, for anybody listening, that if you're thinking, what should I do? Where's, I know I don't want to be in this typical industry. Where's my calling? What's my niche? That's Zach just said it. The key thing, he looked at something that actually interested him. Like if it lights you up, then that's something that you're excited about. If you're doing something that you have no interest in whatsoever, like follow those things that if you weren't working every day, what would you be doing? And especially those people who are in lockdown who might not be working right now, what are you doing? What's the stuff you spend like 5 hours of your day deep diving in on the internet? That's probably something you're interested in. That's something that would light you up. And then the other thing you'd mentioned, Zach, was obviously you were in college and you even failed a year, which I guess could be a huge setback for anybody if you're not doing well, like academically. You know, if I'm not doing well at this, I'll just give up. But you kept going. So could you tell us a bit more about kind of what you studied in college and how that kind of related to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so like in college, I was in DIT in Dublin in Ainger Street, and I was studying a degree called Business and Computing. So it was like 70% software development, so proper nerdy techie stuff, and then the rest was business. And you know, it was fun. Like I'm not going to knock that. Like the whole world of coding and tech is awesome, but
Mm-hmm.
I personally just don't have the brain for it. Like it's quite an to a lot of the people I were with were introverted and were kind of just love to code and just not talk. Whereas I struggle to not talk. So
Yeah.
I was just, again, I just fell into the class joker kind of role, which is just it was difficult. But I guess the reason I completed the course was because like I fell into the guilt trap of my parents have put me so far. Like they paid from all of my studies
Yeah.
throughout the years. And I I kind of knew in my heart I was always going to do my own thing, but I was 3 years into a 4 year degree. And I kind of figured, the least I could do at this point is just show my parents that I've got this backup degree in place. Now, thankfully, I did get the degree in computer science and business, because that's actually what got me into Canada as well. Is it got me the visa a lot quicker, was having a degree. Um, so what I did was I took my foot off the gas in college and put my foot on the gas and started my first business, which was called Zora Productions. And that at that time it was people had caught on I could edit, so people were just getting me to do some basic editing, like it's my 60th, I want a slideshow of pictures, or I want a workout editing of me in the gym, basic stuff. And that was my side hustle at the time. So my final year in college was tough because I was trying to grow my own business. At the same time, I'm trying to finish a degree that was well above my head. And it was a stressful year. Shauna laughs when I talk about when we look back there at how stressful that actually was.
It's great that you had her though to get through the madness that she plowed through with you. That's can't be easy. I'm a university dropout, so woohoo!
How long did you last?
So I really, really short, like a semester.
Amazing.
So basically for me, I was in university studying musical theater and music. So I was studying the field that I was pursuing, and I got a phone call to ask me to go on tour. And I was like, well, I can't go on tour and do my degree. So I remember sitting on this red bench outside of my university, called my dad and was like, Dad, so I've been offered this really great opportunity, but there's no way I can do uni at the same time. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. What do you think I should do? And my dad was like, Amy, you're going to university so you can do this professionally, so you can go on tour and all that stuff. You're getting these offers now. Why are you in university? And I was just like, yeah, I'm out. Daddy, you're right. Cheerio. Like, it was great to have his support. And my dad was like yours. My dad's an architect, and he was all in work for himself, but kind of similar to your father, where you're still doing these projects. You're like stuck still on a bit of a scale, and you're not really doing what you love. And my dad said the same thing as yours did: pursue the stuff that you want. Don't be like me and do a job I don't like. So it's nice to have that support. But yeah, it was a bit weird, but it was exciting to have their support. But yeah, my degree though was relevant. Well, I can't even call it a degree. I was there for a semester. The degree
I was just doing a semester definitely helped, because it's like when you go into college, if you go too deep, it's hard to pull back. Where you're only in a semester, it's easy. It's like, it's not too long.
Yeah, I'm like, no. And it was decent, and I made some friends, people I'm still friends with today, oddly enough, really, really close with. But I think when I dropped out of uni, I still lived in the same area. So like I still got to be involved with like university life without having a shit ton of debt. So it was good. But my course, whatever that I was studying for a semester, was relevant to the area that I was jumping into. But when I hear computer science and coding, and then I look at kind of what you're doing now from like a marketing and editing and digital space, I'm like, how do they relate? Or like, was part of your course doing video editing, or where did that even come from?
No, I'm like completely self-taught. Like every day is a new day when you're in a world of running a business in a background you don't have. So like there's no correlation other than maybe my computer goes on the brink someday and I know how to fix it because of my 5 years in college.
Wow.
That's about it. So yeah, every day is like building a business with not having a background in what you're selling has been interesting. It's a learning curve like this, and every day is more and more. It's intense, but it's so exhilarating,
I love that you've made that work though, because so many people say to me, Amy, I didn't go to uni for this. And people who are a bit older as well, in their 30s, even early 40s that I'm chatting to, that are wanting to change their industry or change what they're specializing in, they're like, it's too late for me. I can't do a degree in this. I don't have time. And, Zach's living proof for anybody that's questioned that, where you don't need to have a degree in this area. You don't need to, necessarily have that space. You just need to genuinely have that mindset and drive. And I know for someone who's dabbled in the editing space with this podcast, it ain't easy. It's tricky. It's tough. Like, and I think one of the things, I hate to quote Tony Robbins again, but one of the things he says is that, like, the things that people get praised for in public is the stuff that they have worked tirelessly on in the background. You get rewarded for the things that you've worked on so much in the background that people don't even know about. Some people, I'm sure Zach might even look at your videos and think, oh yeah, he's just got his drone, whipped it up overnight, and it's so easy. But it's not. It's really not. I can talk from just trying to edit these videos, but Zack's stuff is out of this world. It's next level, and I'll share some links for his stuff below so you can check him out. But how did you pursue that? Like, how that sounds so impossible to some people. I want to be there, but how do I get there? Not even just professionally, but personally too. Even anybody who's listening to this from a mental health perspective and not so much an entrepreneur side, it's so daunting sometimes to see where you want to be personally or professionally, but how the hell do you get there if you've not got the tools? Like, what had you still pursue this editing, from the guys that you were looking at on YouTube doing all the traveling? You still didn't give up. Like, what was it that still drew you to that?
I think, and like, just to touch off there about like not having a degree in what I do, sometimes the people that do have the degree in what you do, or like in a background, it's kind of a bad thing, because they get told how to do it. And the last thing you want to be done is told how to do it. If I was told how to do my job, I'd be working for someone else. I've figured it out. And because I figured it out, I don't have anything in my head of the naysayers. I don't have a way of, I find a path and I take that path, So I would say anyone out there that is in a position where they don't have a degree in their field, great, because you're in a fantastic position too. But in terms of how did I get there and how did I get into the world of what I do now, networking would be the short answer to that, Amy. I think, one of the powerful tools of, being Irish in particular is like we love to chat, and when you love to chat, you're good at we don't shut up. Exactly. So networking was the absolute key for me. I had some people on that I followed that were Irish and that were doing what I wanted to do. So naturally I followed their journey and I was their number one supporter. So if there was a meetup, I was there, but at the meetup, I would be doing my best to stand out and basically be the guy at the meetup that, for example, I gave one of my good friend now, Ben, who was like a hero to me at the time. I gave him a can of Monster because he was at his meetup, and I was like, hey dude, here's a can of Monster. And he remembered that. And because of that little token, he took me under his wing and he showed me, how to edit like him, which was by far the best in Ireland at the time in my head. And like, we're best mates ever since. So like, it was just about meeting people in the industry that could walk me through it. They knew I was a beginner. I didn't have an ego. I was like, I am so new. I don't know anything really, but I want to learn and I'm eager. And that group of friends took me to where I am today.
I think that's the perfect mindset to have. And like, you were still pretty young when you did this, like, when you were starting off this adventure, and that's something like, kudos to you. That's a huge, thing to go with your personality and kind of talk to how humble you are. And that's I think, when a lot of people think of our generation, the millennials, we get painted with this brush of, we just want everything handed to us. We're not willing to do the work, where that is so not the case. Like, I'm so pissed at whatever millennials give us that rep, but that is not us at all. Like, that's
one
percentage.
Thing.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, it's the naughty kids that rule it for the rest of you. But I'd say that's the same thing that I've done too. Is I've looked at people who are doing the kind of stuff that I want to do, or the things that I want to get better at, and learning from them. And I think that's kind of the best way to learn from people. Like, not to say we want to get everything handed to us, but the people who are a few steps ahead of us, they've already made some of the mistakes. They can say, oh, this worked better than that. But then you still learn as well. You're not necessarily taking exactly what they did and carbon copying it. you're making it your own as well. And I think it's one thing that's also quite daunting to some people when they go into a new field or start something different. It's like, oh, but I'm doing something that this person also does. And, you know, they do video editing. Well, how am I going to, and they do well at it. How am I going to be well at it? Because they already have the, you know, all the people in the industry. You know, you look at food delivery services like Fedora and Uber Eats and all this stuff, and it's not sponsored. But they like, how did Uber Eats become a thing when Fedora or delivery already existed and all that stuff? Like skip the dishes, like they all do the same thing, but they're all really successful.
There's room for us all.
Yeah. How did you, how, like, was that ever something that fell into your head? You know, did you always think, you know, I can do this, just they're doing it, but I'm going to do it differently and do it my way? Or was there ever that, where's there room for me in the market? Or I guess given your personality, you may have not had that doubt, because I think you've always kind of been very driven. But where did you ever have that doubt come into your head, or how did that come up for you?
I entered the industry at a great time. I think, you know, social media content and the world of content creation is becoming huge. And at the time it was, you know, this is about 5 years ago, where YouTube was becoming a thing. So
yeah,
there was so much demand that me and my friends could all have plenty of work each and not cross each other's toes. In fact, you know, the minute I got up to the skill set that was good enough to help the people I admired, they would straight away bring me in on jobs and hire me to help them, you know. So it's a very supportive industry. And, you know, I think the key thing is I just never got the ego that I'm better than them, and that I always am very appreciative to these guys that they helped me get the foot in the door. And you just don't forget that. That's all I would say, is like, you just have a lot of respect for the people that helps you out.
I love that. And that must have been a huge like career achievement for you to then work with them and like assist them on things. Like, how did that feel? These guys that you looked up to that helped make you who you are today, to then work for them as well. How did that feel?
Yeah, like that's a surreal experience. That honestly was like, life made. Like I'd got my degree. I was filming for, you know, like with my buddies and making some amazing content. So at that point, I was just like, that's what, like, when you're looking for a feeling of entire, like, very, like, a happy feeling and satisfaction, that was kind of it. And I kind of, like, I'll dive more into this story, but when I went to Canada, I kind of stepped out of the career, but that feeling that I achieved at that time is what got me back into it. You know, it's you remember how it felt, essentially.
Yeah, it's like that fitting in versus belonging. Like, you can go to any old job and fit in, you know, working your 9 to 5. Yeah, I can do this for a bit, and we'll jump into it now. Like, I know we've talked about like how we even met. I know Zack hasn't been in this industry always. When you guys went to Canada, you were doing a few different things. We'll jump into that in a sec. But like, I know in those roles that you did here, you were kind of just fit in. You're like, yeah, one of the lads, jump in. Yeah, I'm part of the team. We're doing what we're doing. But you didn't feel like you belonged. And like, seeing your face, like anybody who's watching on YouTube, when Zack's talking about these guys he was working with and learned from in the media industry, your face literally lights up. Like, it's transferable, like in your mannerisms as well, which is
crazy.
Great.
I never noticed.
Nice to see. Yeah, it's nice to see. I love it. So I guess, yeah, Zack coming to Canada, obviously coming to a new country, it's a bit daunting to still pursue your passions as a full-time. Where do you begin? Zack and I actually met because I had reached out to him to be a candidate of mine. I had some editing jobs that had came up, and I think you might have applied, or I'd hunted and I'd found you, something like that. And I was looking at some of his videos, and I've seen some of Zack's early work. Now, when I compare it to what he's done now, it almost looks like two completely different people. But even what he was doing back then was great. And it was when you were under Zor Productions. And I was like, this guy looks great. This is awesome. And even when I was talking to you, I think that even was like, have you ever thought of doing recruitment? Because he just kind of had that, like, you know, as he mentioned earlier, a bit of a rascal, one of the messer. I'm like, that he can talk really well and sounds really confident. He could fit in this industry. Unfortunately, I didn't scoop him up into the company I was working with. But you did end up going that realm, which is totally different to the area that you come from with your editing. So tell us how that came about.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I go into it, I'm just going to plug you as a recruiter. Like we connected like that. Amy's great on the phone. It was like, I haven't spoke to that many recruiters on the phone, but me and her were just like house on fire. So that's why we're still talking today or
Yeah.
after that call, which is hilarious. I know you and Shauna met down the line too, but it's funny. But
I think it helps when you're just a human. Like, and I
yeah,
think that's probably also what worked for you with your selling your phone cases and stuff over the fence. Like, you're a bit of a messer, but I think people appreciate people who are human. Like, there's definitely time to be professional, but even with that, I feel like when you're being professional, you can kind of be like a professional friend. Like, I'm here to help you, like, help me help you, let's work together. Like, you've got to have that human element. If it's like so business and super professional all the time, it's not going to work. Like, it's just not.
I
So
agree.
people first industry, like with networking and everything, completely people first. Like, yeah. And I'm glad we're still chatting now.
Me too. Absolutely. But yeah, like I guess I came over, like it was a sad time when I had to leave Ireland and close. I was gonna try keep Zora Productions going, but the reality was, and Amy will back me up here, like Vancouver is a very, very expensive city.
Yeah.
It's leaving your family home and going to have rent for the first time in your life and pay for the bills and everything, and trying to be a socialite as well and experience the country requires a lot of money. So it kind of dawned upon me very fast when I got over there that firstly I dropped all my clients, so Zora Productions was no longer operating, and I had to find something. you know I think I was encouraged by my mother to give the corporate world a try, because she, as I mentioned earlier in the call, she kind of wants me to go down that route anyway. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. I'd done 2 weeks of demolition because I'd arrived in Vancouver and I was just making some money while I found the right job. And I did get into recruitment, as Amy said. I went into tech recruitment, which is fitting for my background in technology, and I can talk tech, and I also have the kind of personality to be extroverted about tech, so I could connect with the introverted tech people and talk their language essentially, which definitely helped me. And you know I liked recruitment. I was good at recruitment. Like it is just about speaking their language, and I was
Hold on, Zach, 2 seconds. I'm
on
losing
my
you
way
again.
up in the company. I lasted about 14 months in the company I worked in, but I just noticed myself on a very just a downward spiral of happiness. I think I started to complain that bit more, just a little bit, like starting just have a bit more negativity. I started to just want to drink a little more on the weekends, and this just started to build and build and build to the point that I was like, I'm now going down this route that is not me. I'm turning into someone that I would always like. I just I never wanted to be that person. I wasn't passionate. I was very money hungry. All I wanted recruitment was high, like there was highs, and then there was go out and celebrate those highs, and then there was lows, and I was being told what to do, and I just kind of felt like I was back in school. So I wrote down on a to-do list. I'm very big about my to-do lists and my goals, and I just threw it out there. It was like 12 months in, and I was like, quit this job by January 1st, 2019. And I was like, no plan, absolutely no plan, but I know I don't want to be here. And the one person that backed me up was my brother. I told him what my plan was, and he's like, I know you'll make it work. So I contacted my brother, and with my frustration, I just said to him, like, this is where I stand. Like, I'm in Canada. I'm living kind of the dream of living abroad, but I don't feel like I'm living my life. And he said, do what you need to do. If quitting that job is what you need to do, now is the time to do that, because realistically, you're living abroad. Like, don't take life too seriously right now. And so that's what I did. Like, it was literally a couple of days before I quit my job, I started to contact old people I used to do work for. Out of the blue, I got in this client that just wanted me to edit remotely for him. And like it's weird, like it's that thing of manifestation. Like it's just like it was on my radar, it was in my head, and it all just started to piece in. Next thing, I had a source of income in the world of editing again. Um I didn't have enough work to live in Vancouver on the editing I brought in. So I got a bar job as well, just to to have a catch to me quitting my full-time job. And on January 2nd, which was the first day of work in 2020, I walked into the job and I just quit. And I just got handed my notice, and I got walked out straight away because recruitment is ruthless.
Yeah, it is. It's bonkers. And I like that story in its essence is like, it's a tough one. Like when you're going to a job, and I guess this is something that definitely I'd say 100% that people can relate to here that are listening. When you're doing something day in, day out that has you living for the weekend, like that's a big red flag for me. Like if you're doing something and you're like, oh, I can't wait till I'm out of here, and you're thinking of doing something right away that lights you up once you get out of there, or wanting to escape from it, not only in a professional sense, but even personally, if you're in an environment, in a relationship that you are always having to run from, or run to partying to numb and not feel and all that stuff, that's a huge red flag. Like for anybody that's listening who can relate to that with Zach, like that's a big sign to switch something up, that something's not right. Don't get me wrong, sometimes it is great to just let the hair down and go for a little boogie and do your
100%.
thing.
Yeah.
But it's the why that's attached to it. Why are you feeling the need to do this? And that's something that I really want any of you guys listening to really hone in on, both personally and professionally. If you're in an industry where you're dreading to go to work every day, where you are living for the weekend, living for 5 o'clock for when you can close that laptop and go, right, I'm done, and pursue what you want. Or even anybody here who's, can't relate in the professional sense, but in the personal sense, is in a relationship, in a friend dynamic, that they are feeling stuck and closed off, and that they can't be fully themselves, and something that they're not fully embracing. It's maybe time to change things up a little. It works. I've definitely done it myself, and Zach's living proof of it, and that it works too. But Zach, just correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that you started this new adventure, you quit your job January 2020, right?
Yeah.
So
pretty fresh.
Just before COVID?
Yeah. Great timing, right?
Yeah, perfect timing. How much did you shit yourself when everything started to close down, and you must have been like, how the hell am I going to get work? What's going on? What did that look like?
Yeah, like that was, if there's ever a time to open a business, don't do it before a pandemic. That's one piece of advice I'd give to everyone.
But you were smart though too, from listening to your guys' podcast. You waited till you had like some savings in there, you were comfortable to do so, and then you jumped in.
Yeah, like I didn't make my decision lightly of leaving my job, and I am financially smart in that sense, and that's what Vancouver taught me and Shauna, was to save. So I did have my money that I had learned. I built up some money in recruitment. It pays well.
It does.
Thankfully. So the pandemic hit. Everyone Irish started freaking out and flying back to Ireland. I had just started my business. My head was all over the place. Very stressful time. Didn't know whether we'd get out of the country, didn't know what to do. We had this lovely apartment. It was just, lots of things. But luckily for me, and I came across this one client who I had flown out to New York a couple of weeks previous. That was like my first job, as doing what I love again. And this guy was just, a wealthy client, essentially, that no pandemic would knock him off. And he wanted so much work done that it almost secured me. Like it secured me that throughout the whole pandemic, I was just blessed, I would say, to be honest, because he was giving me the consistent work. We were inside every day. The city was on lockdown, and he just wanted more and more work. So, I was blessed with him. While I was working for him, I was still working a lot. So I was building up my business with new clients and stuff like that. But he gave me the wedge to initially just get things started. So I'm lucky the pandemic didn't affect me. If anything, it gave me more opportunity to work longer hours, and to satisfy this client that, just wanted a lot of work done. So that's literally, like it was just I could say it was luck, but you create your own luck. Like I
Yep.
wouldn't have got that client if I didn't quit that job,
Yep.
and it was only after I found out that the people that were in my job, they got put on they had to take a pay cut. They were like in a worse off position than I was, having quit my job and took that risk. So, it's funny how things go.
Yeah. And even that client that took you, there's a reason they picked you and not other people. Maybe the fact that you didn't go to university for this and you didn't have bad habits and you were someone that was literally pursuing something they're passionate about. And that's something that I get a lot from people who come to me for coaching is they're like, Amy, I like that you haven't done your degree in this. Fair enough. Now I'm actually doing some certifications, but um, they're like, I like that you haven't done this, but you've lived it and it works. And that's why I want to come to you, because your method actually works. You're not giving me your textbook information. You're giving me what you're passionate about and what you've seen work. And I think that's something that also even attracted me to you back then as a client was I was like, he is just good at this, naturally talented. And again, like I said earlier, you get rewarded for the things you do, behind the doors that's unseen. And I'm sure this guy saw what I saw in you then as well. And like I say, dudes, like when I first saw Zack's stuff compared to when he was leaving Canada, it was like night and day. And he was still great to begin with. Like I can't wait to click on some of his stuff to see his videos. Like it's just phenomenal. Like it's huge. It's impressive. I'll get there one day. I'll need to get some tips from you.
You will, absolutely. Just keep going at it. But I was just going to touch off that point. You seen, some value in me, but if you were recruiting for obviously some clients at the time and they wouldn't see the value in me because they have this tunnel vision of this guy doesn't have the degree in the background we're looking for. Little did they know, if you take a chance on someone that's entrepreneurial and that's hungry, that's that's who you want, and it's just I've got that a lot. Like I've come in recruitment, I've come across a lot of people that just look for paper, but why don't you look for passion? Look for someone that's hungry, because I just feel like a lot of people look for the wrong things in people and you miss out on diamonds if you do that, if you have that mindset.
Completely. I was one for that. I've always lived for the underdogs. Like I've been working in HR for the past 7 years. Do I have a HR degree? No. I even was working as a HR business partner in a huge company, global size, and I was their HR business partner, but they were like, you have the experience. And one thing I do love now with a lot of jobs that are out there, the few jobs that are out there, is that a lot of them do say, when it says they ask for a degree, they do say or equivalent experience. Now I'm seeing a lot more of that. And I think the industry, the world's starting to pick up that you don't necessarily need to have got the paper. Sometimes the practice is more important. And I think it's definitely more important. So again, a nice little reminder for anybody out there that's panicking, someone will see you for who you are. And this comes way back from my old sales days when I used to do 100% door-to-door sales, and 100% commission. Yeah. But one of the things they used to tell me back then was your no's bring you closer to your yeses. So if you're applying for a job and people are like, oh, you don't have the degree, you don't have the paperwork, great. One more no out there. I don't need to work for that company. They're not aligned with me. Like anything that doesn't fit you, when you get told a no, so many people get in their head and they freak out and they kind of do the imposter syndrome of self-assessing what's wrong with me. Screw that. Like it's right into the hell yeah, okay, you're not a no for me. That no's bring you closer to your yeses. The more no's you hear, it's like a thing, it's called the law of averages. Go ahead and look it up. I will butcher it if I try to explain it. But the more no's you hear, it brings you closer to your yeses. So if you are applying for stuff now, guys, if you are trying to change things up or start your own stuff and people are telling you no, or people are saying you're crazy, run with it. Then you're doing something right. Like that's the biggest. I get really excited about that stuff. So I'm glad that happened.
You're so right. Like in the world of entrepreneurship, like the sooner you get more comfortable with no, the sooner you'll start striving for success faster. It's part of it. Get the no's out of the way.
Yeah. And I guess even with this entrepreneur world, you get these blocks coming up, things get in the way, what we talked about earlier, like even I started YouTube and I quit. Yourself, you were a bit like, shit, I need to make some money. So you jumped into a real job, so they would say.
Yeah.
But we also get things going on in our personal life. You know, I know working in media can't always be easy. You know, you're putting yourself out there. It's all about image, personally too. Did you ever find that the world of this perfection of media, where it's all clean cut and everyone's perfect, everyone looks perfect, did that ever transfer into your personal life?
It has, and to be honest, like it's something, it's only that I've learned to deal with more recently. Like it is a lot of pressure. Like I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm everywhere. My face is everywhere, and there's a certain level of expectation that I have to be showing that I'm having this great life all the time, or so I thought. And what I had to sit down, and this is something I had to talk to Shauna about. I was like super stressful. The most stressful days I'd have are the days that I didn't upload a YouTube video, or that I got too many dislikes on a video or something like that. And she kind of said to me, what are you trying to achieve here? Like, do you want to be a famous YouTuber? Like, do you want to be a personality online, or do you want to be seen as a successful entrepreneur? And I was like, I want to be seen as a successful entrepreneur. Like, I don't think there's no value in me being a famous personality. So she was like, okay, well, so you want to be a successful entrepreneur. So why are you trying to post all these videos about you living the life and this and that, when you're trying to be a successful entrepreneur? Why don't you just focus on that? And at that moment, it really all clicked. I was like, I want to grow a business that's amazing, that helps people, like that literally helps people and brings value. And at that moment, I separated me and my business into two separate things. So now if
Yeah.
you see Zack on social media, now you see Zack. You don't see someone that's trying to be someone else. You see the real me, the cringy me, the guy that's taking the piss. And if you see my business, that's a professional, valuable kind of business. And it really just brought the pressure off. It's
Yeah.
very easy to get caught up in that world of perfectionism, and
It's
that was my solution.
100%. And I'm glad you shared that, because it's something I even feel sometimes, like you say, your face is out there every day. I'm like, oh, well, I need to do my makeup. I gotta go do my hair, get the ring light out, all those things. And don't get me wrong, I'll still kind of do them. I'm not wearing much makeup though today, like eyeliner, mascara, eyebrows, and a bit of concealer. Whoa.
Love it, killing
But the ring light helps. So, but
it.
it's one thing I think, like, viewers do want to see something that's a bit cleaner, but I don't think people really want to see that, what we would call perfect,
Yeah.
that as what we have it attained to in our heads. And I think that that's the really tough part for anybody, going online, whether you're someone who just posts on social media regularly, or you're trying to be an influencer, or you want to get into that field. We get so caught up in the filters. We get so caught up in the, oh, well, now I've got a diet because there's that one little wrinkle in this picture here, and I've got to hide it up with this clothing. Like, it's a really tough industry, tough world to be in. I know as a woman, it's something that people talk about a lot, from how it affects females, but they don't necessarily talk about how it affects guys. It's very much a female dominated image, no filter, all that stuff. But I'm sure you lads feel it too. Is that something you want to give us, I guess, a bit of an insight into your experience with that side of the world?
It is. It's like, it's just as stressful for guys. And I know as a guy, and I can speak for a lot of guys here, we don't voice how we feel, but we're watching the followers, we're watching the likes, the engagement, just as much as anyone else. And like, for me, like, my big passion is the gym, and I have to be very careful about how obsessed I get about my body image, and social media just really does not feed that. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a completely natural bodybuilder. I love to train, but I am never, ever going to be as ripped as someone on steroids. The problem is, on social media, you can't tell who's on steroids.
Yeah.
So that's that's one element of social media that's always kind of got to me, is just like, I could train as hard as I want for months on end, but at the end of the day, there's a guy out there partying, living the life, that's in better nick than me. But it's the fact is, he's on steroids as well. So it does play a lot with your head. And that's why I did that transition of separating the business, because now
Yeah.
I don't have this anxiety every day of, it's 6 o'clock and I need to post. I haven't posted anything, and I think this lockdown would affect me a lot more too. In Ireland now, we can't leave our house. So I would be urging to travel to get pictures just to look happy.
Yeah.
And that's not life. Like, that's not how you want to live your life. That anxiety is cruel. That's horrible, you know?
Yeah. That's a tough world. Like, and is that something you did do? Like, did you just get up to like purposely post these picture perfect type images? Like, was that something you were doing at a time?
Absolutely. Like, I have been there before, and particularly when I was single, you know, it's like
Yeah.
the guy that looks like he's having the best time of his life is the guy that's going to get the most girls, sort of thing. And,
Yeah.
you know, I was on top of my social media game when I was single, and, you know, and I guess being in a relationship now has helped me kind of take that pressure off, because I'm not trying to be, I have Shauna and she's there, you
Yeah.
know, I'm not out trying to find someone.
And I think that's also one of the beauties with Shauna. I know some of you guys who've listened to the podcast have heard her beautiful voice already. But she'd be one of those people that would be like, cut the bullshit. Who's the real you? Like, nobody needs to see that. People love you for you. Like, she's just such a natural cheerleader for the people that she gravitates to. So I guess you're also lucky that you had such a wonderful woman to lean on. And that's a big thing that I'd say. And it's, I guess, not to put pressure on those who are listening who don't have partners, but you know, even if it's not a romantic partner, a friend, like even when Zach was saying that he was contemplating, you know, changing things up a little, he called his brother. I think it's really important to just have someone in your life, or a handful of people that help you be grounded, that help you to just see the light at the end of the tunnel. And some people will just call you on your bullshit. Sometimes you'd be like, I don't think that's healthy. Like, I love that. And that's one thing with moving to Canada. Not to diss my friends from back home, but I was very purposeful about the people that I let into my life here, because I knew I didn't have family here and I needed people to keep me grounded and point me in the right direction. And it sounds like from your stories too, Zach, that you do have these just great people that are great soundboards, not just from a business sense, but even from a moral sense and a personal sense. And you're really lucky to have that. And I love, and I'll be getting Shauna back on again soon, so you guys will hear some more beautiful nuggets from her. But I just love you guys together. Like, you're just, you're awesome.
Thank you, Amy. You're such a good supporter of us. I see all the likes and the comments and the shares, so I do appreciate that. And I think that's the world of social media. Although we knock it a lot, it's my whole entire business.
Yeah.
But it's also a fantastic way, especially when you move abroad, of meeting people in your industry, or in your, like, people that share the same hobby as you. So when used correctly, and when used to share your love for a passion, it's amazing. So just be mindful of that. You know, you use it for the right reasons and you'll have an amazing experience.
So you guys, top tips from Zach. Use it the right way. And like you said too, like the guys that first lit you up, that were doing all these posts and videos, like, you know, I guess some of that might have been somewhat staged. Now you're living it, you can kind of see, but you just pursue the things that light you up. Like, if you're doing something and it makes you excited, post about it. Somebody else might make it be excited. If you see something that motivates you, or you want to put your own spin on something, of course, share it in the world. If it lights you up, it might light up somebody else. And I think, especially not just in the world in general, but especially during this COVID world, that it's so important to light each other up more, to build each other up more. And social media marketing, you know, as much as it is called the demon out there and all this stuff, it is so great. And especially during this pandemic, you can't go to networking events, we can't socialize. You know, especially for someone that's been building their business, you know, since you guys have rebranded, how have you kind of done that through social media, through the lockdown, since you can't go to these meetups or networking nowadays? How have you been doing that online?
Yeah, I guess I'm possibly in the most perfect industry for what's happening right now. Like, so luck again. I created the luck, but it's still luck. I am in the world of social media management. So, you know, like, what I started my new company, it's called Social Directions Agency, and that's exactly what it does. It directs people's socials. So, like, we basically empower our clients to just be the best brand possible. And everyone at the moment is just panicking, being like, I have no online brand, I have no online voice. So we just give people that voice. Now, like, being I've a good reputation of working with clients, and referrals are high. So, like, for me, it's just been referral after referral since I started my business. I guess I've jumped into a world that's somewhat new. The idea that you'd need someone to manage a social media account is something that's come across in the last number of years. So yeah, that's literally, it hasn't been the most challenging because I have a passion for what I do. People can see that, and also I'm in an industry that's very sought after right now. So I'm grateful for that, and thankfully business is good because of that.
But I think, I know there is a bit of luck in there too, Zach, but I think, to credit to you, there's a lot of people out there who do what you do, and there's a lot of people out there who do what you do, and it hasn't been working, or they're not growing. And I think a big thing from the relationship of knowing you, I'm like, he is so ridiculously humble, and like, you guys probably picked that up a little bit from here, just hearing him chat. Like, being humble and having gratitude and that eagerness to still learn, and tell people, like, I want to be like you. Like, there's so many people out there on the internet that you look up to, people listening here, and you're like, oh, I'd love to just like tell them, but you don't. Like, why don't you? Like, it's so important to do that. Like, some of my friends, I've talked to them about this entrepreneur series I'm doing, and they're like, how do you know all these people? And I'm like, because I've reached out. Some of them I know like through life, but then others I've just reached out to because I've been following them for a while, or I've seen their business story and I really admire them and they're up for a chat. Like, just ask, like, just reach out to people. And it's so important that if you see someone that lights you up or is inspiring you, or you're scrolling through your feed and something pops up that genuinely made your day or had you think twice about something, let that person know. Who cares if it's even freaking Oprah? Just shoot her a message. Saw the post with you won't get her replying, or you might not ever even hear back, but it might be her team, and you never know. Exactly. Like, it is so important to just reach out to people that light you up and share that, especially online with the world we live in today. Like, it's so important. So I guess like a big takeaway from Zach is reach out to those people that inspire you, be humble, work your freaking ass off. And if you're someone who's feeling stuck, if you don't know what your calling is, if you don't know what you should be doing, look at what Zach did. He looked at the stuff that lit him up, the stuff that excited him, and didn't give up, kept pursuing it. And like, one thing my dad always said to me, and I don't know whoever was the original quote, but my dad always said to me, if you do something that you love for a living, you'll never work a day in your life. And it is so goddamn cheesy, but it's true. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure, Zach, you're probably like, yeah, but there's some really heavy days that it feels like it's working.
There's some days certainly that feel like work, but
but it is true. And like, Zach's living proof that this does work, and that you've just got to work hard. But it's not easy. It's not something that happens overnight. Like, Zach, from when you first ever started Soar Productions, or even before that, when you first started editing to now, like, how many years has that been roughly? What age were you when you first kind of jumped into Windows Movie Maker and started editing videos?
Yeah, I love that. I love that you brought Windows Movie Maker. You're an editor right there. But it's been 5 years now, so it's only now that I see the company like starting to run more automated. Like, there's systems now in place, and I don't do all the work. Like, I have two people working with me and stuff like that. So like, to compare from back then to now is just, it's one hell of a journey, it really is. But it's every step of the way, it's been exciting. Like, I've enjoyed the whole process. The end result is not what I'm striving for. I enjoy every day of the week, and I enjoy seeing things build up and it becomes stronger. So, it's just something, it's an incredible experience, just building up a business that is what you love. I didn't focus on the money, and just to touch off money there, money is something I love. Like, having money, who doesn't want money? It's amazing. And I realized when I got into this industry, it actually wasn't an industry that was full of money. But I have kind of I have built the business in a way that it can now generate money, but that's just happened because I focused on the passion. Now, if this does become a business in the future that's a lot more profitable, and I do very well off it, great. But that's genuinely while I'm in it. I'm in it for the love of what I do, and the rest followed.
I love that. Passion first, and then your pocket follows afterwards.
Passion over pockets.
Yeah. But I think it's so true. And like it's the same with like even when you talk about the social media presence, you know, you were trying to go for this, what's that perfect thing? And I think if we do that, you know, we're like, what's going to make the most money? We panic too much about that and we get tunnel vision and we miss the reason of why we're even doing this in the first place. And you know, it is risky, but I feel like anybody who is in that entrepreneurial mindset, we work hard and we're kind of known in our friendship groups of the people who just get shit done. We make things happen. And I feel like if you pursue the thing you're passionate about and you are that type of person, it will do well. It will be a success, but you've got to just focus on the bit that lights you up and not get caught up in the business bullshit of it all. Like just keep grinding. Your yeses will come, the money will come, but as long as you're doing what's right for you and aligned with you, like that what comes first. And that's, I think, Zach, like you're a huge inspiration for that. Like I know you're probably like, little old me, whatever, sure, whatever. But it's true. Like
now.
But when I've kind of second guessed some of the stuff that I'm doing, from a coaching perspective, I've just been like, well, no, I'm not gonna give them this. And I get you guys, you and Shauna pop into my head, and I'm like, well, no, because they did it, and they're fine. Like I can do it, and like I genuinely get you guys popping back into my head, and I'm like, well, what would they do? Okay, no. And that's again why I wanted to get you guys on here, because without even knowing, you guys course correct me sometimes, and I'm like, Amy, get out of your head. No, you can do it. And it's nice to see people, you know, peers, similar age groups, similar backgrounds that are pursuing it. And like it just reminds me sometimes, and it just, you guys keep me in check without even, I'm sure, not even noticing or knowing.
That's fantastic to hear, you know. And like, you know, like all that really is just, you know, like you're aware that it's happened, you know, someone has, you know, got to the stage like you want to be at, and you just need to remind yourself that like I have plenty of people that are my people that like I just look up and think, okay, well, they're doing it, so I can too, you know. And that's back to network. Just have a couple of people in your network that you admire and that have the work ethic that you want and that you have and align with you, and you'll never stop fighting for more.
Yeah, 100%. And I know you've already given me a bit of that in itself, so top tip, but I do want to ask you, Zach, I guess maybe two questions. One more so being for those people that start but never finish, and then for you know, just top tips in general for, you know, not giving up on yourself and pursuing your career. I'd love to know kind of what your top tips are for those two questions.
Sure. So like if I was to the people that like start but don't finish, it's important that you just make your goals smaller and more accomplishable. You know, if I was to say in the morning, okay, I want to go from 20% body fat to 10%, of course I'm going to make a gym kind of reference here. But if I was like, I'm going to do that by this date, it's a lot of pressure. But if I was to break goals down into smaller achievements, like I want to lose half a kg in the next kind of 2 weeks, it's just bite-sized goals. So I feel like the people that start but don't finish sometimes just set their goals a little too big. Yes, that goal should be there at the end, but there's a series of building blocks before you hit that final goals. So, you know, I have goals for everything. I have my goals for my week, my month, and my year. So sometimes the year goals don't go to plan because they're too big, but the week goals, they're ticked off, you know? So that would be my advice there.
I'm a to-do list goal person too, and it's so key. And starting small is something that I really had to take a bit of humble pie and do. Like I was always the overachiever, and I had to be the best. And if I wasn't great right away, then I'm like, no, I'll just not post it. I'll not do it. And a big thing for me was to get my to-do list. I couldn't just think of the small pieces right away. I like reverse engineered. I'm like, okay, so this is where I want to be. What are the small steps to get me there? And it really, really helps. And it takes the pressure off. Like sometimes it can just feel so overwhelming when you've got all these lists of goals and to-do lists and you're like, oh, whoa, this is so much stuff. And like the pressure. But like Zach says, if you just look at it in small little bite-sized sections, you can just breathe. And I feel like you start to get that momentum and believing that this is actually possible, that this is tangible. Like, look, oh, that's done. This is done. A week later, you're like, oh, wow. Okay. there's traction. I've got my client. This is going. It all comes to life. But it's when you just step back a second and just believe in yourself and take those goals one step at a time. So thank you for that reminder. I have my goals too, but there's definitely sometimes it feels a bit overwhelming. So guys, it's not really a reminder
it's
for you.
when you achieve the bigger one, like the top of the bite size. And when you achieve that and look back through the flow of what happened to achieve it, you're like, I could have never, ever worked towards that main goal unless I bite-sized it. You know, it's because you can't predict the flow. So yeah, 100%.
And that goes for business and personal. You know, whether it's something you're wanting to change up, like Zack was saying, you know, it was the gym for him, you know, initially. It all makes a difference. You've just got to take those little steps. And I don't know if it's something you can relate to, Zack, but I would definitely say for me, the hardest step is the first one, like just doing it. Once you do it, then you're like, well, I did it yesterday, so I can do it today. Like anybody out there who is wanting to start making some changes in their life, business or professional or personal, you know, day one is hard. But if you're putting something off, and there's an episode coming out in the next few weeks that I'll be talking about, or it might be out already, I guess, by the time this is out, called When is the Right Time, that I do with one of my friends. And there's no better time than now. Like if you're putting something off because, oh wait, well, I'll just do that. Like even this interview that I'm doing with Zack, I was thinking of putting it off to like next week or the week before or the week after, because I'm getting surgery. Not tomorrow, but the next day of the day after recording this.
Oh wow, I didn't even know this.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, you know, I'll just put it off because I need to like mentally prep for surgery. And I'm like, but why? Why? Like, just do it. Yeah. Like, we put so many things up, even reviving my podcast. I was like, oh, I just moved, you know, I'll wait till everything's finished, unpacked, and then I can relax. And I'm like, why? Like anybody watching on YouTube, this is empty back here behind me in my office. Because I'm like, screw it, I'll just do it. You guys will slowly see my office become an office. Like we always put things off. So day one, anybody out there, anybody listen, I'm giving you some homework. If there's something that you want to change, whether it's something that Zack's talked about, whether you're in a job that you're living for the weekend, where you are looking at people who you're passionate about that light you up, but you haven't really figured out what area you want to go in, I want you to literally grab a notebook, whether you do it right now, grab a notebook, do it right this second, or pull out your phone, get your notes out, and literally write down, you know, the things that if it's something that what do you spend your time doing when you're scrolling on videos? Is it, you know, marketing stuff you see? Is it art? Is it cupcake videos? Is it animals? Like what stuff lights you up and gets you excited? And if it's not, you know, a social media aspect, you know, when you are looking at products in the world, when you look at industries, what are the podcasts you listen to? What are the storylines that hook you? Like have a little think about what actually lights you up and write them down, whether there's a bunch, and see if there's a common denominator. Does one fall into the arts? Does one fall into business? Does one fall into fitness? There'll typically be a common denominator in the things you like. Like for me, I was always drawn to people who sang. I was always drawn to people who danced, who painted. And I was like, okay, so the arts is my thing. But then being Irish, I don't shut up. So it's always people. People were a big thing for me. It was all people forward. And then that's where I found HR and all that stuff. And like with Zack too, he followed the things he was passionate about. So I want you guys to write those out, see how they make you feel, and just start seeing what lights you up and dip your toe. Just dip your toe. You
never know what's going to come from that. You never know. You can't predict it.
You don't. You really, really don't. And then I guess, Zack, my other question, can I remember what it was? This happens because we went on a tangent.
No, I remember the other question because I was like mentally taking note. When there's two questions, I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
But the second question was, you know, any advice? I'm pretty sure it was any advice you have for someone looking to start a business, or like someone had the question there was, to I just don't want to give you the wrong question.
Yeah.
Let
me see.
Words of wisdom.
Yes, words of wisdom. Yes, that one. Top tips for anyone wanting to go into business for themselves, which I think we just talked about. And then top tips for those. Yeah. So anyone who wanting to go into business for themselves, because we talked about the one about people getting stuck. Yes. So the second question, your top tips for anybody who's wanting to go into business for themselves. I know we kind of touched on a few of them, you know, starting small, pursuing your passions. But are there any other key things from someone who has done it that you're like, these are my biggest takeaways?
Yeah, I would say one of my top tips would be to put yourself in a position to succeed. And when I say that, I mean financially speaking. There's a lot of pressure in the world today to live this glamorous life and to drive this nice car and to rent this nice apartment. But think about, if you're going to start a business, it's a lot of financial pressure, it's a lot of investment. So if you can set yourself a life up that is less demanding on your pocket, you put yourself in a position where there's way less pressure. For example, me and Shauna have just built a tiny home. We have completely wiped our rent and now just have bills because it's on my parents' land. But we don't have those bills. And that's the reason we did that, is because we're trying to grow two businesses and we don't need the burden of trying to make rent when we're putting every penny we have into investing and upskilling and buying equipment and everything. So that is a big one, and it's actually so nice to know that coming to the end of each month that we don't have the pressure to do that. But that like, I understand people need to rent apartments like you, Amy, as well. Like, you're in Vancouver, you haven't got land around, but there's always ways to cut back on your finances. And I would just say, be mindful of that. Look into your finances. Can I make my living a little cheaper? Can I build up a reserve of savings? And once that's there, it's an amazing peace of mind to know that, you've got that reserve there. You can keep pushing if things don't go your way one month or for a couple of months.
Yeah, it's really important. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily think of that side. They'll just run before they can walk, and then they've set themselves up for failure. And it's important, when you are really at the point where you're going to pursue this full time, to make sure you do have that safety net. And you did hear Zack correctly. They built a tiny home, and it is so freaking cool. For anybody that hasn't seen their journey, I will post it on the link below so you can see it. But it is so cool. And you guys do talk about it. You do have a podcast episode about it on your Millennial Life. So make sure to check it out. It's like, I have so many friends that get obsessed with like tiny homes and like container homes. My boyfriend's really into container homes. And there's a company out in Kelowna that like do them. And I'm like, even that, I'm like, maybe that's a whole other episode, but I'm like, the idea of like, let's do this. And then you make it real. Like, these guys know their shit. Like, Zack doesn't just do this like personally, professionally. Like, he's like, John, I want to do this. And then you just make it happen. You just do it. But it's hard work. And that's something you'll see throughout any of Zack's stuff. That it's consistent. They just put their heads down and they get shit done. They were building this tiny home while still running their businesses, both Shauna and him. And not only building a home and living in a tiny home and working pretty much side by side on different companies, and they also made it through it. Like, they're still together. Like, that's a lot to do. Speak to like your guys' balance. And I think for anybody who jumps on to the Millennial Life podcast, if you aren't already listening to them, you'll just kind of see like what a great support network the two of them are. It's just phenomenal. But you guys just light me up and inspire me every day. And I hope from listening to this, you guys will hop onto their platforms and check them out. And I guess, Zack, with that, for anybody that wants to follow your social media platforms, where can they find you? And then I guess we'll jump into your professional stuff after that as well. But where can they find you if they want to delve into tiny homes and your guys' travels, adventures, and everything like that? Where can listeners find you?
Yeah, I guess the best place would be YouTube. Is like the core of my stuff, and that's where my most passion is. So hop onto YouTube. It says Zachary O'Rourke, and if you want to check out any other platforms, you'll see them all linked on my channel in the videos. So that will be the place where I'm most creative.
And then I guess from a professional sense, for your company to go so beautifully branded on your chest there, if anybody wants to reach out to you, whether it's, that they look up to your background and they want to reach out, or if they want to pursue your team professionally and get your support and some collaboration, how can they reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I should read my cheesy quote here.
Do it.
It's like, Social Directions Agency is the name of my company, and our goal is to maximize our clients' brand exposure across multiple social media platforms. There we go. So that's what we do. Anything social, that's what we do. So if you just want to chat about content strategy or even just chat about social media platforms, hit me up, and I'll be happy to talk about it. As you know, it's a passion as well. I'm not looking to sign up everyone I speak to. So
yeah, not everyone's going to be a fit for what you do. And when you say for social, like, just to clarify, because obviously I'm someone who's also building my business online, and I know a lot of people on here are too. Do you do the likes of logos and stuff too, as well as marketing strategy? Like, how kind of deep do you guys go?
We kind of try to tick every box, but the core fundamental thing we do is we just help like small businesses that are in a position that they need to outsource their social media.
Yeah.
We take the reins and we control it all. You know, we haven't got to the point where we're on a personal, we don't really manage personal social media because usually the budget isn't there, but
Yeah.
we would manage someone that's just about to kind of, they're too busy to focus on their social presence, but they know it, they need it. So that's where we step in and we take over.
I love that. I love that you're like, we take over.
The pressure is off, because social media is a lot of pressure.
It is. I think I even posted it the other week, like, anybody have any tips on like apps or platforms I can use for like scheduled posts? Because I'm finding, like, you see people that post every day, but they're not physically posting every day. They actually have it scheduled and the system does it for them. Like, they'll do like one day of just content and like typing it all up, and then they set it aside. And I didn't even, like, naive because I'm in this space, but I didn't know that was a thing like until recently. And then I asked for advice, and then like Shauna and a couple other people messaged me. It was like, try this platform. And I'm like, whoo, the pressure is off. Like, you can breathe again. And I'm just someone on a very small scale. Like, if you're someone out there who has their own business, whether it's, you know, coaching, whether it's a store, whether it's, you know, tangible goods that you're selling, you're so busy running your business. Like, how on earth can you get the social side? And if you're doing both, kudos to you. Like, it must take all of your time. But if you want to take some of that time back, like, our most valuable asset in life is our time, and who we spend it with and what we spend it on is so important. So if you are someone who's listening, who is an entrepreneur that has their own business, and you're really needing that balance back, maybe Zack's your guy to talk to. And I will put his info below so you guys can reach out. But Zack, it's been a pleasure to have you here. It's always good to catch up. And yeah, I'm really excited to share your story with the world. And yeah, just, it's been great to have your insights. So thank you for popping on.
Thank you for having me, Amy. It's amazing to be invited onto the podcast. I was jealous because Shauna got on the first series, so I've made it to the second series. Thank you.
And if you guys ever want to have Zack back to delve into a particular topic that we were talking about, you know, I'll always ask him. So this is your guys' podcast. So if you guys have heard something in Zack's story that you'd love to know a bit more about, you know, I know he's a busy guy, but I can always give him a little nudge and see if he wants to come back. So
I'm always open for podcast. Absolutely.
Yeah, and just be prepared. Anytime I've got an Irish one on, it is going to be a bit longer, but it's grand. Don't worry. But thanks again for everybody who has tuned in, and yeah, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Rewrite Your Story podcast. It would truly mean the world to me if you could subscribe and leave a review on whatever streaming platform you listen to this on. Leave a written review, a 5-star review. It truly helps to get this into the ears of those who really need to hear it. If you're not already a member of the Rewrite Your Story community, you can find us at rewriteyourstory.ca on Facebook, Instagram, and our website. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week. Bye.